talk about the topic of TRT bodybuilding, or testosterone replacement therapy bodybuilding. I use that term. Other people use that term in the bodybuilding industry that are talking about using a maintenance dose, which is a replacement dose, which should be what it is. I want to go through kind of things that get misconstrued as far as that label, and people kind of throw it around loosely, and it can mean a lot of different things for different people. So my interpretation of it, if you guys follow me, my testosterone replacement therapy, or HRT, which is hormone replacement therapy, I guess you call it HRT because it has growth hormone involved, which is every hormone optimized. So I'm always about being within that normal range. Within that normal range, whatever chart is, some chart will say 200 nanograms per deciliter to 1100. Another chart might say 300 or 350 to 1400. Who knows? So within that normal range is where I like to keep it, and that's what I consider a legitimate TRT. Anything super physiological, which is above that range, is very unnatural. And of course, it's unnatural to begin with because you're synthetically giving yourself testosterone. But I find whenever you keep it within that normal range, your blood work is good. And that's what it's all about, is health and longevity. So TRT bodybuilding to me is hormones optimized within the upper normal range. And that's with growth hormone 2. So 2 I use a day. Put your IGF usually in the very, very top, depending on potency and refrigeration and all that stuff, and how the integrity of the actual peptide amino acids are. So that is TRT bodybuilding. And then of course, a lot of people misconstrue it because a lot of HRT clinics or TRT clinics or anti-aging clinics, whatever you want to call them, will prescribe you Anavar, Deca, whatever else. There's not too many things, Winstrol. And any time that I've done the Anavar cycle, guys, it's been an Anavar cycle. I've never said it's like I'm still on TRT. It's over my TRT. So if I'm on a cycle and I do an experiment series, I'm on a cycle of extra steroid hormones. Simple as that. But if anyone tries to classify like all that stuff just because it's legal and prescribed as still TRT or whatever, that's kind of misconstruing the truth, because you might be prescribed, but it's a cycle, an anabolic muscle building cycle above physiological range, which is anything of a testosterone derivative, Anavar, which is oxandrolone, stanozolol. You don't produce that, okay? So that is an addition to the TRT. That's a nice little cycle. So why do people get so butthurt and bent out of shape whenever, for even an example, myself, whenever I talk about TRT bodybuilding and my low dosages and what I can maintain? Here's my intake on it, and after talking to some other high-level guys that have gone down in dosages for whatever reasons, because they maybe had to have health problems or whatever, a lot of these newcomers or people that are in disbelief, it's simply because they haven't been through it. So if you're a new buck, a young buck that's come up in the last 5, 6, 7 years or whatever, and right out the gate you started off with a pretty hefty cycle, you started off with growth hormone, or you started off with GH, testosterone, EQ, whatever, and you kind of just really went a little harder than most people right out the gates, and you're growing, maybe not growing that great, maybe your genetics are mediocre, they aren't really in the elite level or above average, or just average. That's going to be harder for you to chew the reality of another person that's built a lot of mass from hard training, nutrition prioritized first, years before enhanced. Then once they do get enhanced, they take it step by step, small doses, one product maybe, and then they don't add GH for years later, or never have added GH or insulin, all that stuff. So it's all about your background. So when I first started, guys, in high school, I was very scared to do anything. Protein took me a while to finally take. And then I remember my best friend, training partner, he wanted to do pro hormones. So back then, Andrew was a big thing. And we'd already been training for 2 years, and he wanted to take Paradeca and Decavar, liposomal, 4-androstenediol, 19-nordiol, pro hormone. And I was so adamant about having the natural hormones at a young age, and I was so well researched back then that I was against it. I was scared to mess with my endogenous production. I knew that, not that growth plates were a big deal back at 17 years old, 16 years old, but we could still be growing potentially, obviously, and I just didn't want to hinder anything. So I was like always scared. Finally, whenever I took my first cycle, it was one compound, and no, it wasn't your set in stone, have to be testosterone. It was Phenoplex, homemade, 37.5 milligrams. So we made it in 75 milligrams per milliliter. We took half a milliliter a day. Blew up from that. and I came off cycle, HCG, all that stuff. Never went on back in the day in the off season. Only whenever I was dieting for stuff. And in the first part of my career, I only used steroids whenever I dieted for shows, and I'd come off naturally in the off season. So I was always very cautious. So I built up very slow, and I was very scared going into coming onto the bodybuilding scene. So, and I would win shows, win state shows, regional shows on just AAS hormones, no peptides, no growth hormones, etc. for years and years until 2012. I added growth hormone, but prior to that, I took baby steps. So I never used a lot of gear starting off. So I built the base. I did all those things, and a lot of people that have done that can understand where I'm coming from. Whenever they see my pictures and all that, they understand that it's about your approach, and if you've been there and done that, and how you personally approach it from the beginning. If you start off with like some of these guys right out the gate, some of these YouTube sensations that are just all about no bullshit, this is real talk, this is what the real pros do, and all this stuff, and you take so much gear right out the gate, why the fuck would you believe someone like me or a Jeff Long or any of those guys that do claim low dosages and look pretty good? Not that I look amazing, but some of those guys look really good, and you maybe not look that good, and you're pushing pedal to the metal. Of course you aren't going to believe us. Why would you want to? It'd make you feel like shit, first of all, and then you've never firsthand experienced it, because you never had a health condition. Maybe hypothetically, if you had one, you would be forced to do that. You didn't start off from the beginning. You went pedal to the metal right out the gate. So I can understand why some people simply will not believe it, or simply do not want to believe it, or not make sense of it, or not put themselves in another person's shoes coming up, because they don't want to believe that maybe they did it perhaps more of a shotgun method that might not be optimal. Where do you turn to after you already started off with growth hormone insulin for your first 2 cycles? So that is my take on HRT or TRT bodybuilding, guys. Build your base, accumulate the muscle tissue, train, diet, and that's what I'm all about. I'm obsessive compulsive. Anybody that knows me and has hung out with me, my diet is immaculate. I'm non-stop on point in my diet. I count all my nutrition facts, all that stuff. That's just the way I've always been. That's always been a mental thing with me, even since I was in 6th grade. Nutrition facts and being obsessed with food. So that's why I have a really good handle as well on my body composition, how lean I stay, and all that stuff, because my mental attitude, my mental fortitude, my all that stuff. So that is my take on the TRT bodybuilding, guys. And yeah, don't get it twisted. TRT bodybuilding should be within a normal range. Within normal range that keeps your blood work healthy. Because if it's not healthy and you're above normal range, then it's not TRT. That's a fucking little cycle. Straight up.